Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. Today's pick a card reading is what's your personal X factor? And I'm reclaiming that colloquial term that we all knew before the TV franchise of the same name, which the colloquial phrase meant, what is the special ingredient you have? What is your special sauce? What is your special flavour? What is different, unique, interesting, innovative, a special talent, any of those things, the thing that makes you really stand out, the thing that could make you very successful if you chose to really work at it and make it something that you mastered in some way or that you leveraged and used if it's a personal quality and so forth. So certainly if coming to this reading you are wanting to be an entertainer or something like that and or be part of those sorts of talent shows or anything like that, more power to you. Hopefully we'll see energies in these readings that really support you, that is where your X factor is. But it could be anything. It could be your spiritual approach. It could be the way that you love. It could be academic success. It could be career success. It could be anything. So that's what we really want to look at today. We want to see what is the individual genius of you and how might that manifest and how do you make the best of it if you want to use it for some form of success, personal, material, career, relational, whatever it might be. So what we're going to do with the reading is we're going to start with a bit of a map of elements of your X factor. Firstly, that almost the unconscious mythology underneath it all. And I don't mean by that mythology as in it's not true, but the driving plot line, I guess, of everything in terms of your character and what is special about you. Then we'll have a look at it in terms of archetypes and iconic sort of concepts, and then how that looks materially, what that might manifest as. Then when we've got that kind of a sense of it, we're going to ask Tarot about where you're up to with developing your X factor and what advice Spirit has for you. We'll have a bit of a look at who might be your followers or collaborators or friends and allies on your journey towards manifesting your X factor, and then just get some closing advice about how to be really true to you and the whole journey. For the readings, I'm using different tarot decks for the different piles, so I'll put the numbers down now for those that like numbers. For pile number one, reading number one, I'm using the Crystal Unity Tarot. I'm using the Magician cards for each of these decks to give you the sense of the magician being able to bring together all the talents and skills and manifest something in the world, and to give you a sense of the feel and the energy of the different tarot decks in case that helps you choose. So I have the Magician from the Crystal Unity for pile one. I also have the symbol token, the tarot symbol token of Om, so that you may relate to that symbol. For pile number two, I have the Magician from the movie Tarot with the symbol token of the Flower of Life. And for pile number three, I have the Magician from the Dark Mansions Tarot with the symbol token for Metatron. So one of those colour energy symbols might call to you, tarot decks. You might like the numbers, whatever. Feel free to go to more than one reading if you feel drawn to more than one for an amalgamation of the messages. Whatever works for you. When you know what reading or readings you want to go to, as ever, the timestamps will be in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile one to your reading. So this rather complex layout is the three aspects I was talking about that we're going to look at first. The first is the kind of mythical narrative underneath you. The second is around the iconic archetypal energy around you, and the third is how that manifests. And looking at this, to me, there's a sort of a combination of all of it I need to talk about first, and then we'll go into it as each sort of area one by one. You are essentially, and I'm feeling very much drawn to the David Bowie energy here as the kind of central point of it, you are the natural shapeshifter. You are someone who is more than brave enough to look within and to change and to rework whoever you are in whatever you do in your life. You are able to look at that. You're able to sacrifice and let go of what isn't working anymore, evolve, constantly evolving. There's sort of, I'm getting an image of a snake shedding its skin and so forth. You are able to do that, and you have a very high sense of timing to be able to do that because your intuition is highly strong, highly illuminated. But whatever it is that you do, whatever your X factor is, that you are constantly evolving and possibly being an icon or a a symbol to others for, is about love. It's about emotion, and this could connect in sort of musical or sort of dramatic or performing sort of things. It could be in a workplace, it could be in the family and the love relationships that you have. Whatever it is, you are immensely brave, immensely capable of moving on, changing and evolving and making sacrifices that are necessary to achieve and to fit in with divine timing, because you're very much connected to that sort of thing. As a result, you're going to celebrate a lot as you go through your life. Your X factor, which is this capacity to flow, almost like water, to flow with the changes that you need to do, to pick up what you need along the way, to leave behind what is no longer working, with that wisdom and that illumination. That you're almost like someone who comes into this life to have a lot of relationships of various sorts, and who you love and how you share your love in whatever form it is incredibly evocative and sort of iconic for people. And I think deeply healing. But you can do it because you are perfectly capable of being alone. You are perfectly capable of making the sacrifice that is necessary. You are brave enough to look into the truth of things. So let me unpack this a little bit for you. Over here in terms of the narrative or the mythology arc, firstly we have Selene, which is the sort of mythological thing, the intuition. You are very much in touch with your inner self, and also I think with your higher guidance. And Selene is the goddess of the moon, so that you're very connected to moon energy. And that's one part of this sort of like almost maternal, relational, emotional side of things. I suspect that many who've come to this have strong water signs in their chart in particular. And I would say there's something, whatever is going on with your moon in your astrology chart, I think it would be indicating a high degree of psychic ability as well too, in one way, whether it's what house it's in, like it could be in the 8th house or the 12th house, for instance, or whether it's the sign that you're in. So things like Pisces or Aquarius or Virgo are ones that tend to be very strong for psychic energy. Doesn't have to be that, but these are just examples. Or it could be that it aspects really strongly with Neptune, for instance. There's something about the moon with you, and there's something about the triple goddess. And the reason I say that is that the fairy tale that we have here, Vasilla the Brave, is about a girl who is sent out into very dangerous territory and to do dangerous things by sisters who aren't very nice to her. But she carries with her a bear, and the bear has her mother's voice, and her mother actually guides her through the sort of process of working for the crone energy, surviving that and getting the wisdom from it and showing the bravery from it. So the triple goddess concept is probably very key to you as well in some way. This is why I say there's a divine feminine aspect to this. You don't have to be a woman, but you are very much in touch with that side of you. And there's something about how you can very openly and clearly articulate that to people, and with great bravery, that is very inspiring and that people will follow. Also that you are prepared to renounce, offer, let go when things are no longer working. You have that energy around you. You do not hold on to that which is no longer working, and you do not make what you do just about you. This is why I say I just could get this sense of a spirit that flows through their life, and they've almost got to that spiritual level where they know it doesn't really matter on one level whether they're the queen of the world or whether they're, you know, serving somebody in a grocery store or anything. It doesn't really matter where you are. There's something about your authenticity and your connection which motivates and drives everything, and it ultimately manifests over in love, in the circus of love, and in understanding the various things about love. Some of you may well manifest celebratory success in careers that illuminate the issues around love in some way. So some of you may literally go into relationship counseling or something like that. Or if you're a performer, there may be something about the sort of work that you know, the materials you work with, or the lyrics that you sing or write or something like that, that really illuminates love in some way. Or you may decide, and some of you may decide to do this, to be not about your career, to renounce an issue of you being the sort of center stage in some way for a great love. Some of you, what you are most here to do is illuminate and celebrate love in its most pure sense, to be part of a great partnership, a great love, and that is over everything. what you really want to bring into your life, and you really have that real capacity to do it. And I think, oddly enough, you have the capacity to do it because you could also live without it. So there's nothing sort of desperate or needy about love for you. It is an expression of emotion. Very, very skilled, very mature, very brave in that area, far more than most people. I think your friends would be amazed. Some of you may, in fact, manifest this by loving in a way that is not necessarily as conventional, and you know, being able to celebrate that sort of thing and be an icon for that. Certainly with the David Bowie energy, when we're talking about icons and archetypal energy, you are an achiever. So even if you did, in a sense, give it all up for love, you would be giving up probably quite a successful career or presence of your own. You don't have to give it up for love. You could be an achiever, as I say, in anything that speaks to the matters of the heart. But you do know you have an amazing sense of timing with It Is Time here. When you seek for your illumination and your intuition, you get a sense of timing and divine timing. And the David Bowie energy here, I think, is, as I say, the shapeshifter, the person who moved with the times, the person who was a bit ahead of their own time in many ways, the person who could speak both symbolically and also very emotionally and really connect with people with the music. So your X factor is your fluidity, your capacity to go where others would fear to go, your capacity to give up anything that doesn't need it, to not be weighed down. You don't carry baggage. You move on, you learn, you move on, and you achieve and you celebrate and you just continue, because you see life as a journey. You don't have a set destination in mind, but in doing that, you inspire people incredibly, particularly around what it is to love others, love themselves, love their journey, love life, all of those sort of things. And you are someone who really does shed illumination on that. But there's something in your own personal narrative, the story that people who maybe get to know you better, or if you're on a stage and something that your public gets to know about you, where you have been brave, where you have stepped outside of the norm, where you have been prepared to be a bit unusual and sacrifice the conventional life to get to the core of what you really want to achieve and what you really want to illuminate. So you're a shapeshifter, you're fluid, you're all about love, you have incredible timing and incredible intuition, and you're brave enough to do it. But it's not a path that many could follow. I think that they are more likely to relate to certain aspects and feel more confident about various things by watching you. But you walk your path alone, even if you are in love. You have that sense of yourself as a lone entity in the universe, but you're comfortable with that in a way that most people aren't. So it's a very powerful thing. So yes, your X factor is that you really get where you are in the universe in a way, and you're not as needy. You're brave enough to understand that. So let's ask Spirit for what this is meaning at the moment. Like, where are you in whatever this is? In manifesting this illumination, this celebratory success? It is something about relationship and love in some way. How is that at the moment? Where are you on this journey, and particularly around the timing of the journey? I dropped this card, so I think it meant to come out, which is a nice, good start. Okay, so I think this is saying for most of the people who've come to this reading that you're this fairy story really relates to where you are at the moment. I think you're starting to understand this about yourself, and possibly you came to this reading to hear this, to have it affirmed to you in some way, sort of emotionally and maybe intellectually, for that kind of illumination. It looks as though you are at the moment stuck in the energy that Vasilla was at first around this fairy story, where she had people and energies around her that were not working in her favour, that were trapping her in trials and things that were troublesome and worrying and a bit nightmarish. So you are in the position where you're needing to be brave. And it's interesting that the Nine of Wands is there, because the Nine of Wands reversed is like, do you give up at the last minute? You're not going to do that. That's not who you are. In fact, I think you sense already with the Ten of Swords there that you are, what is going to give first is is the issues around you, the people around you, whatever it might be, that are making life difficult for you. You're not going to give up. But Nine of Wands makes me think it's a bit like the Seven of Wands reversed. Courage is a really interesting thing, and I think you understand this. It's not about having no fear. It's about having fear and going ahead anyway and keeping on anyway. And that's part of your light. And I think it's really nice we have the sun and the moon. So it is saying that there is a life path that connects in a very alchemical way with your capacity to see the bigger picture on this. So much as at the moment there is something going on in your life which is kind of trapping you, making you feel a bit trapped, making you feel a bit worried, and there might even be people guilt tripping you. There's that sort of sense around that as well too. It could be coming from family or friends, like, why don't you commit to something? It could be a lover who wants you to commit to them, and you know in actual fact that this is something that you will move through. It's not the longer term thing. Or it may even be people jealous of you because they're starting to get a sense that you're being seen and understood and recognised in some way. But you're not going to let that energy get in the way. You are brave enough and you are clear enough to do it. But I think right now you needed to hear this message to understand that you can let go of anything and sacrifice anything that is not, don't let people guilt trip you. Don't let people sort of box you in to be only one thing. You're not meant to be only one thing. As I say, with David Bowie, you're meant to be the shapeshifter. You're meant to go through a range of evolutions in this life. And you have to let go of any of those sort of more straitjacketing types of thought processes. You are needing to have courage to do it for some reason, but you do have it. Like, Spirit is definitely saying you do have it. So let's ask for Spirit's advice about that, because it does look like at the moment you're having to use this bravery that is part of your personal mythology. Now, I should say, once you do that, you won't have to keep doing it. I'm getting that this is the crisis point in a way to make you understand who you are and that you are meant to achieve and you are meant to sort of move with the right timing and change and move forward and not be held back. So once you've mastered whatever this is, you really head quite quickly, I think, towards the celebratory side of manifesting your X factor. But let's see what advice Spirit has to help you with that. Okay, I think this is fairly specific. As I said, there's a large chunk of your X factor and your story that is about love, and you are here to love, and it's very much confirming here with the Two of Cups linking to the Sun. You are meant to love, and for some of you it is confirming there will be a great love that comes through that is what you almost give up everything for. And it's not that it disempowers you, it's quite the opposite if that's the case. Now that's quite specific, but for some of you this is saying that is part of your it factor, your X factor. But for others, I think it's saying that what you're processing at the moment, what you're having to deal with at the moment, and what you'll ultimately release is looking for love in the wrong places or under the wrong sort of circumstances. It is possible when we have this sort of thing around here where the sisters were difficult, the mother helped out, but there is definitely a family thing and there's a female thing around it. For some of you, feminine energy does not work in your favor. Like, there's probably those who are your allies, like the bear is for Vasilla, but there's also feminine energy that is the thing that's trying to box you in. For some of you on some level, and as I say, this is not gender-based, this is just feminine energy. It's sort of competitive on that love basis, and it's trying to box you in, I think, because it knows that you are ultimately more vibrant on that level. You're ultimately more attractive. You're ultimately drawing in more love. So there's a suppressive energy that you need to be aware of. It takes away some of your capacity for joy, and it stops you. I'm getting for some, it's like a frenemy. Like somebody who is always telling you what's wrong with relationships, or why you're not quite right for a relationship, or why you're not... Your personality isn't right for a relationship or something like that. And it could be from a mother or from a frenemy or something like that, but there's that energy around it. But again, you're realizing this, and Spirit is saying, yes, you're right about that. This is not you trying to come up with excuses for something or putting yourself on a pedestal. You really do draw in love in a way that this other person doesn't, but they are trying to stop you. So be aware of that. There's something competitive there. But that would make sense. I think that we're going to find that a bit with these readings, that X Factor in anybody usually brings in the competition from the people who want to be it but don't really have that X factor. So that's that sort of energy around you. And I think Spirit is saying that's the only thing you need to do, because once you know that and you let that go and you sacrifice whatever connections were doing that to you, you can move into this much more aligned with timing and celebratory illuminated energy. So let's shift gears and let's look at who's your support, because I think this is really showing where the difficulty is and who are the ones who are getting in the way with that particular one. So I want to pull out some cards from some different decks to give you an idea about who is going to help you, what sort of, and this could be sort of demographics of followers, it could be particular individuals, it will depend on the circumstances, it could even be the great love potentially, but you'll know better as time goes on what this relates to. So it's just some general sort of ideas about characteristics of those that help you towards manifesting your X factor. Cartomancy, ambitious, and 30s. Okay, so you may well find people who can align with you and help you who are into divinatory things like this. It may even be saying that you were guided by your spirit guides to come to this reading so that you would get that support and that understanding of who you are and that validation of who you are. But I think there are people with sort of divinatory things, because I think you have it as well too, with the intuition with Selene and also with illumination as what you manifest. I think many of you could move in circles where an understanding of spiritual guidance and spiritual timing and divine timing, that's where you align. That's where you're much more with your people. Your people are also ambitious, as I think are you. One of your archetypes is achiever. You want whatever this is, whatever it is that you are doing, you want to achieve something. You want to really manifest who you are. You want to take that fluidity, flexibility, and all of that sort of energy you have and your really strong connection to the heart and achieve something. So you don't have to be scared of ambitious people. It's just those who try to quell your ambition, because the truly authentically ambitious people are more like you and will really align to what you're doing. Some of them may be in their 30s. If not, we're really talking about what the developmental thing is around the 30s. And generally speaking, that's people who are really starting to find out who they are. So I think most of you are probably in that age group that come here. If you aren't, then there's some new version of you that you're really almost starting to shed the skin to be like it was when you're in the 30s, if you're older than that. And if you're younger, you're heading into this thing. But I think 30s is a time for ambition. 30s is a time for working out the navigation of life. And as I say, part of your X factor is you almost don't need to navigate. It almost happens naturally to you, and you can flow and move and change. And I think that people really respond to that, and they can see that there are many roads to Rome and there are many ways to achieve their ambitions. And you become a really strong icon of that in some way. Let's look at some other energy around people who support you or follow you. Okay, there's something quite earthy and analytical about the people who like you. You're very fluid and very water. They're very earthy. So it's actually quite a good match, because I think they might help ground you sometimes and give you the detail for this sort of like high level intuition that you have. Virgo is very analytical, observant. They're usually modest, though I think, as I say, they'll be ambitious, but they're helpful. So it's people who can see the value in your, as I say, fluidity, your sort of changeability, your shapeshifter things. They can see how that could be grounded and something could be made and help you achieve it, I think. They could come from the years of the rabbit, potentially, if any of those years fit with birthdays of people that you know. Otherwise, the rabbit is kind and sensitive. They can be a bit timid sometimes. So there is sort of something there. They're ambitious, but they're not pushing themselves forward too much. Very refined. Can be a bit judgmental, but I think you actually help them with that. I think your fluidity and your heart-centered stuff helps them balance off something of their judgmental nature as well. And then we'll also look at a couple of astrological energies around these people. We've got Aquarius and Virgo again. Oh yeah, they're very Virgoan. I think there's something about Virgo sorts of things, and it's interesting because I say Virgo moon is one of the psychic signs. Psychic because it's bringing the intuitive into the material and seeing how it actually manifests. So it could be that. It could be other people who are connected on a divinatory level to you on that level, but they are very analytical. These people are very analytical. You probably fascinate them because you are so quicksilver. You're so fluid. It's a little bit hard to pin you down, but they really like that because I think it unsticks them sometimes from when they get too much in the detail. They want to connect with the more transpersonal of the Aquarius. They want to know more, and that's also fitting in with the cartomancy, I think. So there's something about your very fast energy and your capacity to change that fascinates them and that they want to support because they think you know something and they really want to know it too. Okay, so your X factor, as I say, is your fluidity and your changeability and your heart-centered approach. You draw to you people who are equally ambitious and want to know and understand in the same way that you do, but who are maybe a little bit more stuck. And so I think they look to you to how to be more fluid. Conversely, I think you can look to them for how to ground that energy sometimes if you are feeling, particularly with the mental energy, if you're feeling sort of weighed down by other people's opinions, they can actually help you analyze and see the way through that. So let's finish with some advice from Spirit for you. So I'm going to use a couple of oracles for just kind of general energy advice, and then we're going to close out with the soul cards as a sort of message straight to your subconscious, as I think those cards can do. So firstly, be spontaneous. Well, that's you all over. And follow through. Okay, so that's interesting. I think that is saying that you are, part of your X factor is that you can be spontaneous, you can be fluid, you can change, and that is always good to do. But when you find the right things, follow through. Only shed the skin of things that isn't working. Sacrifice the things that isn't working. Other things follow through. Be true to your heart on that level, and you can't go too wrong. Okay. And another of the oracles for some advice for you. Okay, Pachamama, Mother Cosmos, and new moon, new beginnings. Well, that's again, new moon is you, moon. You are, as I say, very intuitive, very emotional, very connected to the cycles of the moon, I would say, all of those sorts of things. And you are all about the new. That's who you are. That's part of what you are. It's part of what, say, David Bowie was as well too. There's something in whatever you do that is all about the new. But there is also something about the divine feminine, and we've got it again with the Mother Cosmos. It could be just incredible creativity, I'm getting. Like the feminine principle, the divine feminine principle is the creative principle. So it could be just picking up that many of you will create the new and create something that is very emotionally resonant. And it's because you're fluid enough to be able to go through, keep what works, let go of what doesn't work, and really bring in something that resonates to people. So it could be creativity, but for others of you, it could even be that you are the world's best parent, the world's best, if you have the divine union potentially, that it's also what you create and bring into the world, the new generations. It could manifest in a number of ways, but it is about your bravery. It is about your flexibility, and it is about your heart. And those three things brought together are your X factor, and it's a powerful one. So I do hope that that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you do know what this is and you can relate to it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Actually, I forgot the last bit. I've been doing this a bit lately, forgetting one bit, so I am going to put a note for this, but I did want to finish with the soul cards, and I forgot to do that. So the soul cards to me are a card that really has a deep image to it, that is as much how you interpret it, and particularly someone like you, but it's like dream interpretation. I'll tell you what I get from it in the context of this reading, but maybe pause on the video. Hopefully you have just tuned into this last bit as well too, so that you can get your soul card as well. So this is saying to me that for some of you, well, this is about love anyway, you are about love. So there is definitely that sense of love. I do think for some of you, the part of you manifesting your X factor is drawing in your divine partner, your divine union. I definitely think that's there. And that sense of it on an intuitive level, like the hands reaching out and feel like they're touching glass and the heads are coming together and connecting even between maybe a portal or something. I do think it's that finding it through intuition and through through the heart as opposed to necessarily through the mind or through the more material things. So I think there's that. I think you're about balance as well too, and you're about communion with spirit guides, communion with the triple goddess, all of that sort of thing as well. So, but I think this is really confirmation that not only are you about love in a way that potentially is shared by many in terms of creative or some other sort of work that you do, but it's also about you finding the great love this time around. So again, apologies that I forgot to do that. Hope that you did see this pile 1, and hope to see you in future readings. Welcome to your reading pile 2. So this rather complex construction here, this is sort of the mythological narrative plot underlying your X factor. This is the archetypal iconic level of it, and then this is the manifestation of it. And I've got to say, you guys are deep. Like, you're really, really deep. And part of your X factor is that, and your capacity to go into the shadow, into the underworld, and to recreate yourself is really quite amazing. And also to know when the right time is to take action, to understand when you are in good supportive environments, and also when you're in hostile environments or where it's important to be quiet. Looking at the narrative side of this, we firstly have Persephone. So she is, of course, the goddess who descends into the underworld whenever winter occurs. So she went into the underworld, met with Hades, ate the pomegranate, and so was always tied to that to some degree. So there is a cycle of birth and rebirth and so forth around her. It is the changing in between incarnations, even within life, understanding those sort of cycles, going with the flow of the seasons and so forth, and being prepared to do that, being prepared to have that connection with the shadow as well as the light. And this is shown as much in these as well too, with the fairy tale that is around this. It's about children that were almost cursed in a way, because even though their bringing together and their birth was about bringing clans and communities together, they were cursed for a time and were only, in a sense, almost hidden away and taken out of human form until the changing of the ages that left the old Celtic ways into Christianity brought an energy to bring them back up so that they could actually then be free, have their voice, speak their truth, and then move into the afterlife to then be reborn later, but do it together. So there's something about togetherness. And Persephone also has a togetherness aspect in that Demeter, her mother, mourns. That's why we have winter when she is in with Hades in the underworld. And so there's a sense here of some loss or sacrifice, and an understanding of when you recreate yourself or you help others to recreate themselves. And I think many of you might do that. You might be therapeutic, or you might be inspirational, or you might be motivational in some way. You have a real deep sense of the importance of that, of the responsibility of that, of how if you are a guide or a mentor or a coach, for instance, to people, and some of you may do that sort of work, or you may be educators or something like that, you really take it seriously because you understand the essential importance of every human life and of every life as a learning opportunity and a growth opportunity. You're very, in terms of iconic sort of energy, you're very independent, strong, brave, all of those sorts of things. You're also highly intuitive. You may many who come here may follow spiritual pathways on one level or another. And if it is, it's a pathway that allows you to go into the depths as well as the heights. It's a very broad range pathway that really picks up that X factor you have to be able to understand the cycles of life and the importance and the responsibility that goes with that, and the commitments that are made in the name of that, and the importance of what you create and the preciousness of what you create. So for many of you, this is in some sort of spiritual space, and I think there's children with many of you involved in this, or the people who follow you or are drawn to your X factor may very much see you as a way to help them grow in a connected and together sort of way, a bit like the children of Leah over here. But it's your being able to stand in your truth and to be strong and to be ready to be the hunter as well as the prey, like to be able to be the shadow as well as the light, is part of your X factor, your depth, and it's exceptional. is about that, but also your sense of responsibility. And this is why I think it's saying over here in the manifestation, yes. So if you are thinking, is there something you want to do with your career or with your spiritual progress or with a relationship, it's saying yes, take action, because you really do understand the consequences of things. You really do. You're prepared to take on the gravitas of it all. And you do have the ambition to do that. I think many of you, in some way, this depth is going to manifest in your career or in some form of ambition where you're seen in the world, where you pass this message on. But it is saying take the action, but keep your counsel. With the secret of Shinobi, it's that you do have a good sense, and this is your other thing, because you understand the shadow. You know when you are in an environment where you can speak and show your truth, and you know when you almost need the camouflage sense I almost get from those sort of colours around the Grace Jones picture there. So it's yes, take action, yes, pursue your ambition, but only speak when it is necessary, because your truths and your understanding is at a depth that many people don't have. So it's not always going to be, you have to know the right timing for when your wisdom is going to be welcome. But when it is, it's truly unique and it's truly deep, as I say. And again, this could manifest in any particular way. If you did come to this because you saw X Factor and you're thinking like a performer, then there's something very deep around what you perform, something very brave and a bit groundbreaking, something very spiritually strong. But you do have to find the right audience, and that's when you can take it forward, because it's not for everybody. It's like if you're an author, for instance, you're not necessarily a mass market writer. You are probably more a literary writer. What you have has a depth, it has a heft. That's part of who you are, and people really respond to that. So okay, let's have a look with tarot about what energy is around your X Factor at the moment, this sort of capacity to be in the shadow and to responsibly deal with that. You know, how is that tracking for your life at the moment? Okay, you've recently put a lot of work into something. I think you've had one of these sojourns in the underworld, to be honest, and I think you do it every once in a while. And sometimes I think it's from something that you study or you're looking into, but you have outgrown whatever it is that you've studied or looked into at this point. It has done its time. Its season is past. And to keep looking at that would be to diminish your strength. But you do need to rest a bit. It's not easy. This is not an easy energy. It's too deep for it to be simple. It's too deep for it to be easy. The beauty, though, is that whatever you've been doing, you've brought yourself very much into balance, and you quickly bounce back. I'm getting that if you do exhaust yourself, or you do get nervous anxiety, or you do get any of those things because of your capacity to look in the shadow, you quickly bounce back. It's like you might have a depression, but it might last for a few days, and then you bounce back. You're not someone who dwells any longer in the underworld than you need to get the information and the capacity to responsibly move forward with what it is that you are bringing to the world and your ambition. So that's very balanced. And you are starting to come out of a sense of being a bit stuck. In fact, I think every time you get stuck, that's what you do. You almost voluntarily go down into the underworld. You really seek within yourself what is not working. And you're prepared to do that and to wait in silence until you know what you can say. And then when you feel that balance, you can come forward. But I do think some of you at the moment, you're either in an environment where, as I say, maybe the academics around what you're doing or something, you're a little bit out of step with that because you've got beyond it, but you can't yet speak that if that's the case. So I'm getting that, if you were sort of someone who is an undergraduate at university, you're way ahead of what you're learning, but you can't show that yet because you won't get the high marks if you do that. You're in a system. So I think for some of you, you understand that. And if you are someone who is in the sort of performance arts or anything like that, and you're bringing your depth to that, then you've done what you need to do about craft. You don't need to keep going back and rehashing that. You've brought all those sorts of things into connection, that you now can really go forward with something that is unique to you with that sort of Grace Jones energy. But I think you need to just rest a little bit. I think it's been heavy going just recently. So let's have a look at what advice Spirit will give you for when you've had that rest, how you do then take that action that Spirit is very strongly suggesting you should do. You guys are powerful. Like, you're really powerful. You'd be really interesting to meet, I have to say. When you are ready, you can take all before you. If you have been held back by something that was illegitimate, you can break that all down. If there's something to let go of so that you can recreate and rebirth something, you have the energy to do that, and you have that spiritual connection to do that. The High Priestess is connected to Persephone again, so it's definitely saying you resonate very strongly to that mythology, to that type of narrative arc, and it's powerful, and you have the abilities to do it. It's very interesting because temperance is sometimes sort of seen as being a higher order of the magician. The magician has all the sort of skills and so forth, and temperance is where it's sort of really brought into complete balance. It's like the novice and then the adept, or the adept and then the master, so to speak. So I think Spirit is saying you're at that master level. But maybe you have people to teach with the magician. Maybe that's part of it. And people to liberate as well. People who maybe do not have the same strength that you have, looking into the shadow and looking into what is not working for them emotionally. And it might be connecting to, as I say, different sorts of education, different ways of looking at things. It's again potentially saying that you need to fully liberate yourself from those energies before you speak, or liberate yourself from whatever the structures are that you're dealing with, and that may take a bit of time, just like the children of Leah needed to be liberated by a shift in culture almost, or a shift in attitude, or a shift on that kind of level. But when that happens, you are ready to majorly transform whatever it is that you're wanting to do for your ambitions, to really bring into alignment your sort of spiritual beliefs and to manifest in a big way. So I think Spirit is just doubling down on the yes, that you are heading in the right direction, even if at the moment you're having to keep your counsel. All that work you're putting in, because most people would be scared and not able to do it, is really going to pay off. You're accelerating your spiritual development, at a rapid pace, and that's what your X factor is about. So given that, let's have a look at what supports you will have around you, the sorts of qualities of people who could be followers, or could be supporters, or could be collaborators, or something like that. People who really like your X factor and want to help you, or want to watch as you take that forward. So this could pick up people who you recognize. It could also just be types of people who respond well to your particular X factor, pile 2. The performing arts, intelligent, self-employed. Okay, I think this is picking up 3 aspects that could be true of you. All may be true, or at least a couple of them. Some of you will be potentially in the performing arts, as I say, and it is going to be, you're dealing with really, really powerful, deep archetypes, if that's the case, in whatever form of performance you do, and you will draw other people who like to deal with that depth. I'm sort of getting, you're not the sort of person, if you're a screenwriter, who would write a romantic comedy. You're much more likely to write something like True Detective. It's like you really can get to those sort of depths. And I'm not putting romantic comedies down, but you are looking at the really big issues about the shadow of humanity, and there's something about that you bring into this. And you draw others in the performing arts who want to deal with that level of gravitas. Also, they're very smart. They would be, because you're very smart. Only smart people are really going to be able to fully appreciate your message. I think that's also where you have to be careful what your audience is. Not everybody is going to like your particular cup of tea. You are for a particular type of audience, and they're likely to be very self-actualized, potentially self-employed, just like you. I think they're the individuals, and they're the ones that don't want to just follow what everybody else does. They're very individual, as I say. Let's see what other aspects there are around them. Capricorn, Asia. Okay, so Capricorn, earth sign, very pragmatic, very much of the powers of the world. Some of you may literally be working with the powers of the world. If you're not in the performing arts, you might be in politics or a social cause in some way that really picks up the shadow. Capricorn is all about that sort of energy. But these are people who maybe want to be freed from some of that energy with the devil reversed there. So there's those who understand and like the material things at work. They are hardworking, ambitious, all that sort of thing, just like you are. But I don't think that they are in the more staid end of the Capricorn sort of persona. I think they're more around achievement in different and new ways. Some may be connected to Asia. They may have that sort of background or culture. It could be that if you have a particular market for something you're doing, that Asia may particularly respond to your message and how you do it. So, and it could also be that you come from there. So if that's the case, it would say that there's a very national level to which you can take your work. If you don't come from there, it's saying that there's at least some international connections for you, possibly more than just Asia, but maybe Asia would be an early adopter of something that you're taking out there into the world. And last but not least, we're just going to look at some astrology energy around them. Twelfth house, that doesn't surprise me, and fifth house. Yeah, so this is telling me, I mean, this is picking up the performance arts. I think that as I say, many of you are in some form of performance art. And certainly many of the people that appreciate what your X factor is are in performance in some way, or creativity in some way. There's a highly creative sense. It is saying also with the fifth house, because that's also about romance, that you may find that somebody who follows what you do and recognises your X factor is your perfect match as well. So that's a possibility. But these people are as deep as you, the 12th house. These are the people who like depth psychology. They like to really get into what's hidden. They like to know what's under. They want to pick up the rock and see what's under it, basically, just like you do. They have a similar sort of stomach for that, and not everybody does. But the people who really appreciate your X factor are the people who are happy to go into those depths and the hidden realms as well. Okay, so let's have a look at some final advice for you, because this is a pretty full-on energy to have in the world and to have as your X factor. So firstly, a couple of energetic sort of decks, and then we'll look at the soul cards for a final glimpse of your X factor on a spiritual level. Love you and infinite. Wow. You know, I'm thinking that says that for some of you, part of your bravery is that you may need to love yourself. You may sometimes be alone, because I do think what you have as a message is not for everyone. It's not everyone is as brave as you in that kind of way. But on another level, with the connections that you have spiritually, your love is infinite. So if you do find the partner through this, they will be similar to you, and they will maybe have been very much alone as well. But you've got to be prepared to go into the shadow to find that, I think, and to find how infinite love can be, and under all these different circumstances, and to love the broken and the different. And there's something about you that does that has an infinite love and compassion for those that are different or somehow shunned in society, or those sorts of things. That's very profound. Let's see what else we have for you. Isis and Jade. Okay, Isis fits with all this energy, this death and rebirth. You know, Isis is the goddess of death and rebirth, that whole powerful energy of being resurrected and so forth. But she's also about love. So there is something in this for you that it could bring you the great love. It definitely could. But again, you need to keep your counsel till it's ready, and it needs to be someone who is just as capable of the death and rebirth cycle as you are. I'm getting a sense there could be something quite karmic in a connection for you. Jade may help you. It may be worthwhile having jade around you, because it's a crystal that helps with emotional and physical healing. And if you are used to going into the shadow, then you will need that on a level that other people often don't need that. Okay, so to finish off, I want to draw a card from the Soul Cards, which is a deck that doesn't have specific meanings but has really evocative imagery, like dream imagery. I'll tell you what I get from it, but what we're trying to look at here is a distillation of your X factor on a spiritual level. And so what you get from this will be every bit as relevant, if not more, than what I tend to interpret from it. So you might want to pause the video and contemplate it before clicking off. Okay. Wow. Well, that's you. That's you illuminating new life, rebirth, all of that sort of thing. Some of you, this could come through children, through being a parent in some way. It's possible, though I think for most of you it's much more around an ambition and being different and being prepared to be different and have a depth and so forth. But there certainly is something very new that is precious that you are meant to build and grow, and it's very connected, very psychically connected. You're very psychic with the High Priestess, with Persephone and so forth. There's something here about the third eye and the crown chakra. So maybe think about meditation, thinking about bringing energy and light, particularly if you have been in a dark phase. If you regularly go into depressions or dark night of the soul, then draw that energy in to clear it out, take the jade and so forth. But this is you. There's something very precious that you're bringing in, and you shine a light in dark places and allow death and rebirth to operate on a very profound level in whatever way you use your X factor in the world. And people will really appreciate it, but it's the people who can understand it. Not everybody will, but don't worry about that. Eventually people will catch up, but at this point, you only need to have the audience in whatever it is that gets it, and it will be enough. It will meet your ambitions, you will meet what you want to do, and you will know when to speak. So I hope that that resonates for you, Pile 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments about this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So this rather complicated spread is 3 parts. This is the narrative or mythological underpinning of your X factor. This is the iconic and archetypal way that it manifests, and then this is how it ultimately manifests at the moment in your life. And I've got to say, you guys are here to shake things up. I often when I read sort of see things like social justice and so forth, and I will say this has an overtly community, political, philosophical aspect to it. I think that you are people who in some form or other, you don't have to be political activists or community organisers or anything like that, or even necessarily lawyers, though some of you may be, though you could be. This could be your X factor as being absolutely amazing and iconic in that sort of a field. But even if you were a performer, or if you were someone who was doing human resources in an organisation, or any number of things, you are all about inclusion. You are all about diversity. You are all about getting people to see what is valuable in everybody, and not making certain people, certain types of choices, cultures or whatever become prey or become victims, while others feel more refined and so forth and more able to take all the glittering prizes. You are about equality. This is fundamental to you, and you're very, very clever. Very clever. If you did go into sort of legal areas or whatever, you would be amazing. You could be an amazing human rights barrister or something like that. But whatever you do, it is about that. And the more that you pursue that, the more that you value that in others, and you speak that truth and help others in that space, the more you shine, and the more that people see that there's something really unique about you. You're really able to manifest that and bring it into being. And I think many of you may do this in some form of political or community level. And I'm actually getting some of you may do it initially in some sort of performance and then move into that. Or vice versa, start doing things that are in the community and then take it as a performance out there. There's an interesting interplay of the X factor energy here between being someone who does it through song or movies or something like the Marvin Gaye sort of archetype there, of getting a message out in a way that it gets to people very quickly, very viscerally, because it's through performance, music, art in some way. And then others who are just, no, screw that, I'm just going to get on with this. I'm going to shake up the world, and I'm going to shake up the power structures, and I'm going to get people to see everything is literally not so black and white. This is why I sort of really feel that there's something about you that's here to be inclusive. And it's authentic to you. Like, a lot of people take this on because they go, well, it's the right thing to think, or in general they think it's a nice thing, but this is a passion to you. Like that kind of thing, you're brought in to be a change maker in that, and to be an icon in that in some way. Now, how this plays out in this reading, when we look at the mythology, as I say, you have Poseidon, which is the earth shaker. You are not meant to make a small dent in the world while you're here. If you haven't started to be really seen and make a big powerful impact, you're going to, because that's part of who you are, and you would be suppressing your own X factor if you didn't do it. You are hypersensitive, though. You are very, very, that's part of the reason why this really matters to you. You are so empathic. If you came and you made with the princess and the pea, a very famous fairy story about the princess who could tell there was a pea under her mattress because she was so sensitive, you may come from some form of privilege potentially. You don't have to. The story was not necessarily about privilege. It was more about sensitivity. But equally you could. You could have come from privilege and you have a deep down feeling of, no, this isn't right, and I want to shift this energy, a social conscience that comes from a hypersensitivity and from a empathy that is really off the charts. You probably are an empath or something like that. It's very, very strong in you. And you have a sense, you can feel what it's like to be prey. If you do come from privilege, you may even have suffered from something like that. You may have had people who wanted to be around you because of the power or the money or privilege that was with you. And if that's the case, you very much move away from that. You don't want that. You recognize it's a hollow thing. But I think for most, it's an awareness of the fact that the way that society structures itself can create in different communities and different types of people the sense that they become prey, they become less than human. And you know that's wrong. Like, I feel this really strongly. The energy of this is really strong. I feel like it's coursing through me, actually, and bringing quite an emotional reaction, because I think this is really important, people like you. And you live it. You are it. You are like Martin Luther King or something. You're that sort of person in whatever way you bring it about. And as I say, on an iconic archetypal level, you bring a brilliant mind to this. So you're always going to be able to have the brilliant arguments. It's not just an impassioned speech. It's not just, heartfelt. You can really articulate and think through the reasons for this. If a sort of uber conservative, old-fashioned person tried to argue with you, you would be incendiary. You could just cut straight through that. You see what the real colours of the world are, and you know how to sort of put it in a very emotionally resonant but still very clear, very, very clear, that's the best word for it, way of doing it. And there's something around you at the moment. So if you are, say, in performing arts or something like that, and that's why you've come to a reading about the X Factor, there's something about that messaging you're bringing in that is bringing potentially a contract in for you. And the Spirit is saying, well, number one, get the right legal advice if that's the case. If you're not the lawyer, get the right legal advice around it. But it is time to play your hand. It is time to shine, because Spirit is really supporting this, because your message is such a powerful and important one. And you are especially able to do this. Many people can, as I say, feel this and genuinely want to see that. But there's something about you, the way you think, your empathy, your capacity to shake things up, that will make you able to really do this. This is your X factor. You're here to shift that in a really fundamental way. So that's really powerful. So let's have a look with the tarot about where you're up to at the moment with this. I do think that some of you maybe come from privilege. Not all of you will, but some of you do come from privilege, or you're in institutions, academic institutions or something like that, where your mind knows that things aren't quite what they should be. You are starting to get a real sense of what this message is and what your mission is, but you haven't yet really brought it out and articulated into the world. I think that's why you're not far off manifesting that and shining and playing your hand, but you haven't quite yet done it, because there's something around all of this that is a bit murky and hidden. and you're very pragmatic, and you do need to be pragmatic. You are idealistic and you're hypersensitive, but you're pragmatic, and it's really good that you're pragmatic, because you are going into a realm, in whatever way you do it, where a lot of what is truly going on is under the surface and isn't necessarily what it appears to be. But you can see right through that, and you can see how it tears at the fabric of the heart. So there's something going on in your life at the moment where you're becoming very, very aware of this. It may be that you have had a star-crossed sort of love relationship because of prejudice on some level. That could be literally the case for some of you. For others, it could be a friend or someone you really care about who's suffered, and that's really awakened the inner warrior in you, because you are a warrior. Or it could, as I say, just be that sort of sensitivity, the only way that you can really deal with that degree of energy and sensitivity coming through is to work out how to articulate that and how to bring things to the surface. Some of you may be amazing journalists as well, I'm getting. People who will really, really bring truth to power and really expose what isn't working. You have enormous energy around this, and it comes from the right place. It's not rhetoric, but I think that you are around some people potentially who it is rhetoric for, and part of what you're going to do is expose that so that the true value of this can be seen rather than just used as a kind of political football. Okay, so let's have a look at what advice Spirit has for you for this X Factor. This card dropped out, so it was obviously necessary. Okay, this is quite specific, I think. I'll try and make it as general as possible, but do it in a way that I think there's something quite specific here. I think this is showing that some of what you've realised about the environment you're in, you're a little bit gun shy about yet showing that. You know you're not quite ready yet, because there's somebody, and it's becoming clearer and clearer to you around the environment you're in, who misuses power. Who maybe, I think I'm getting that some of them may have the rhetoric of what you believe, and they may have originally seemed very charismatic and someone you wanted to be around, you know, a teacher, a mentor, a boss, a collaborator, but you're really starting to see they're not that. At the very least, it's that they don't have the courage that you have to really do something with it. They want to be seem to be like the King of Wands. They want to seem to be, you know, with the program and very sort of visible and so forth and showy about it, but they don't really have the bravery that you have. At the worst, they actually suppress people's bravery because they want it to be their way or the highway. So there's something like that going on in your life, in some aspect of your life. But there is an alternative person, an alternative mentor, coach, boss, collaborator, somebody that could help you manifest what you believe, and they have a more practical way of things. They relate to your practical side of things, but you have to, it's really interesting, the energy here. Reaching out to them is good because you need to get away from the energies that you're in, but you have to almost hide some of your ability at first. There's someone who wants you to come to them and work with them and almost be a bit beholden to them at first, so they can teach you their wisdom and so forth. But you really have a lot more than that. But part of playing your hand in this space, I think, is about not showing all of that yet. I think that you'll get to the point with them where they're happy for you to be a king as well. But at first, it's almost like, you know, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. It's someone who has some sort of power, and you need to understand that and bring them along with your idea over time, rather than just going in all guns blazing. And there might be a part of you that really wants to do that because you're so frustrated by whatever else you're in. But Spirit is just saying, part of playing your hand is being smart. Sometimes when we're playing poker, we need to bluff a bit. And that's okay because you're on the side of the angels and you want to do the right thing. This person will be okay in the end. Now, if that very specific thing isn't that, it's you maybe, that you are heading towards being able to manifest what you want to do. But again, maybe you haven't fully come out into the world with all of this yet. The Page of Wands suggests there's a little bit of way to go. What you know is what you don't want to be, which is what you see around you, which is a combination of duplicity and cowardice and the misuse of power and so forth. But certainly, if you felt alone in that, you're coming into a period where you'll draw others towards you. So speaking of that, let's have a look at some of the characteristics of people who could be your followers, could be your collaborators, could be your supporters in this as you bring to the world your X factor. So these characteristics might pick up people that you know already. They may be people coming into your life. They may be just the types of people that are likely to like what you do. So we'll just see what we get. Cardamom. See, we've got that in another reading, so potentially there might be some follow over. Okay, so people who like to see the sort of trends of the world are going to respond to you. People who are into the spiritual or divination are likely to respond to you. They're going to like that practical underpinning of what you're trying to do, trying to bring into the world better balance, that sort of sense of temperance. You're also going to have people from all sorts of age groups. I think that's what that's saying. Certainly, you're not likely to be having children as followers or very young people as followers. I think this is definitely in the professional realms. And even if you did performing arts, it's not like you're performing to very young audience. You're performing to an audience that is more establishing themselves in the world, right up to having established themselves in the world. I'm always getting it reflects this. It's like you might be around about your 30s or in that developmental sort of phase, whereas the people that initially support you might be older. But over time, your message is going to resonate across many generations. Okay, let's see what else we get. Okay, you're the firebrand more than the people who follow you. The people who follow you may sometimes, particularly the King of Pentacles, seem a bit conservative or neutral, but they're not conservative in the sense of being sort of reactionary and all that kind of thing and not wanting to sort of see diversity. They're open to that, but they are open to it because they can see that that ultimately conserves the values that are true to them, and it's also makes very good business sense or political sense. They're a little bit more neutral. You are the firebrand. They're a bit more neutral, but they can see what you're saying, and they really do understand that. They are objective with the teal as well too, and they will be supportive and trustworthy. But these are not people who want to be quite as much in the public eye as I think you will be. They're much more likely to be behind the scenes supporters and so forth, or they're people who are sitting at their televisions watching you as the firebrand, leading a group, politically or philosophically or even in performance and going, yeah, that's what I think. I really support that. I really understand that message, and I'd really want to see it manifest and so forth. So lastly, let's have a look at some astrological indications of the sort of people who will follow your X factor. Water element and Scorpio. Oh, okay. So very strong water elements there, in fact. So very emotionally, they're conservative and they're objective and all of that sort of thing, but they are driven from their heart, and they are driven from issues about dealing with the shadow and power with Scorpio. They do want to see transformation. They want to see world change as much as you do in whatever form it is. So they're very much with the program. They're very emotionally connected. But as I say, I don't think they don't really want to be the public face of it. I feel you're meant to be the public face of it in some way. But they have the same mission, the same depth, the same wanting to transform the world and to get something that's more from the heart, but is still materially sensible and sustainable in some way. So let's get some final energetic support for you in your X Factor, pile 3. Got body and manifest. Yeah, I think this is the same. You are going to manifest this. You're such a firebrand, and the energy is so strong in you. I think that's the body. All your chakras are aligned. All your colours are aligned. you're pretty much unstoppable, and you will manifest what you want to do. I think that Spirit is saying, do not doubt this. That's why you're the warrior that can go into the really complex environment, because you do have that alignment, and you do have the sort of like the frequency of the soul that can do it. Let's see if there's some guidance and support for you while you manifest whatever playing your hand means and shining in the world means to you. New moon. And you are, okay, new moon is definitely the new beginnings, and you're bringing in the new. And I do think it's saying that something new is coming for you, and a new work opportunity or educational opportunity or something that is really going to take you to the next level and get you out of a situation where I think you've been a bit stuck. But this is all about you are. So this is embrace the magic of your being. Like you have enormous energy and enormous sort of alignment with, I think, the better angels of the universe. And what you're doing is going to be powerful. You are powerful. Just energetically, you're powerful. So given that, let's have a look. Let's have a last card from the soul cards, which are very evocative imagery, sort of spiritual imagery. They don't have a set meaning. I'll tell you what I think when I see whatever card comes up for you. You might want to pause the video and contemplate it yourself, but it's just meant to really distill all this together. You're on a spiritual soul level, what your X factor is. Wow, haven't seen that one before. So there you are with the sort of water element, with the purity of it. Your cup, your urn floweth over, so to speak. But you're very calm in the center of it, because I think you know, for all that you're the firebrand and your emotion is going to reach out and have that kind of ripple effect so widely, I think it's also showing that you are self-contained, that you are doing this from the very best spiritual basis. It's not about ego. It's not anything like that. You're quite happy, really, even though I think you will be on a stage on some level or another. I think within yourself, you're happy to go within yourself and replenish yourself through the water of emotion and caring and so forth. But you shake things up with Poseidon, but I think you can also, where it's necessary, just do things gently and make the change. So you know when to use the full force of your power and when to pull it back and contain it so that something is sustainable. So that's what I get when I look at that, but you may get other things as well. So by all means, pause the video and contemplate it if you want. Otherwise, you're absolutely the sort of person this world needs. So I very much hope that you do fully manifest your X Factor Pile 3, and I hope you enjoyed the reading and can relate to it. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you already know what this is, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.